Okay, hi everyone, I'm back with another video. Like the title says, this is going to be my review of the iFi xDSD portable USB and Bluetooth DAC and amplifier. So before I start this video, I want to thank Lawrence at iFi for letting me use this unit for a while. It's been a lot of fun being able to kind of finally bring a truly portable iFi product out and about and go ahead and analyze its sound quality and its usage cases and so on and so forth. So before I do the actual review, I'd like to do a quick unboxing of this. Like most iFi products out there, you get a lot of things inside of the box. So getting this unboxed, you're immediately greeted with the quick and easy user guide, how to use it and warranty basically, and then the actual user manual. The user manual will be very useful if you're just starting to get used to these iFi products, because there's going to be a lot of LED indications that tell you a lot about how to use the xDSD, and that will be handy. Over here, you're greeted with a nice velour carrying pouch. This has a drawstring attachment, so you can secure your xDSD in place when you're carrying it. You get a small silica gel packet. Don't eat this. And then you get this box of accessories here. So there's a lot of things in here. This is a USB-A female to USB male adapter. This blue cable is a USB-A to USB-A female cable, so you can use this to attach to your computer, which I will do right now. You get this USB-B to USB-A female cable. You get a bunch of these Velcro strips so you can attach the xDSD to any portable device that you choose to do so. You get a Toslink to mini Toslink adapter, so you can use this for optical input. And you get two silicone bands so you can attach your xDSD to a portable device if you choose not to use the Velcro strips. So a lot comes inside of this package. And then you have the xDSD itself. On the back, it has this silicone protector for the USB-A input. So let me just go ahead and get the camera to focus, because it does not like to focus on this. Okay, so on the back here, we have the source input. So this is a digital source. It's a 3.5 millimeter coaxial / Toslink SPDIF input. So you can attach your Toslink connector there. To the right of it, you have the USB-A male connector. So that's why you need a USB-A female connector to plug your xDSD in for USB input. To the right of that, you have a filter switch. You can select between Listen, which is a traditional FIR. Oh, no, sorry. Measure is the traditional FIR brick wall filter, and Listen is the kind of hi-fi IIR minimum phase filter. So the difference between the two for me was very subtle. I couldn't really hear a difference. Like a lot of other minimum phase filters though, the listen mode seemed to be a little bit sharper for me. I didn't prefer that listening mode, so I prefer measure mode instead. And then to the right of that, you have a 5-volt battery charger, micro USB input there, so you can use your xDSD while charging. And so the battery will be charged with this input only. And below that, you can see this small dot. There's an LED there that tells you the battery charge that the unit has. It goes from red, green, white, I believe is the color indications for the LED of the battery. On the front of the unit, you have a multi-purpose headphone output. So this can be used for headphone output. It can also be used for line output. So you can connect your DAC, or you can connect the xDSD as a DAC to an external amplifier. And what's cool about this jack is that it's a TRRS jack, but it can accept both single-ended and balanced headphones. So if you have balanced headphones, you can use a 3.5 millimeter TRRS jack, and that will work with the xDSD. They call this technology S-balanced, and it allows you to use a balanced connector, a balanced headphone connector, as well as a single-ended connector. So usually when you have a balanced headphone connector, you cannot connect it with a single-ended headphone, or else it will short the circuit. The xDSD is specially designed so that it won't happen, and so you can plug in 3.5 millimeter TRRS jacks for balanced output, or 3.5 millimeter TRS unbalanced headphones as well. So it's a really cool technology, but it requires the use of a 3.5 millimeter TRRS jack, and not very many people have that. So you would need an adapter to use the xDSD as a balanced headphone amplifier. To the right of that, you have your input LED as well as your sample rate LED. To the right of that, in the very center, is your volume knob / power button. You can push the power button down to turn it on, or to switch modes, and to mute the circuit as well when you're playing audio through it. It's a pretty neat feature. This is also an LED indicator, so it will light up to the color of your volume level, similar to a Chord Hugo or a Chord Mojo. Pretty cool. To the right of that, you have your X Bass Plus and 3D Plus DSP. Well, it's not digital, it's an all analog signal, but they're basically options to modify the sound. The X Bass Plus tends to be a little bit more towards the sub-bass as a sub-bass boost, whereas the 3D Plus enhances the kind of treble region to allow a more wider soundstage that makes it more like you're listening to speakers versus headphones. And then to the right of that, the last button here is a settings button / Bluetooth pairing button. So you can use this to pair via Bluetooth DAC amp. So that was my quick overview of the external of the xDSD. As you can tell, this is a kind of titanium magnesium material. So this is a pretty robust piece of hardware, very solid to feel in the hand. What's cool about this is that it's kind of a dual material here, and this allows the Bluetooth connection to actually work with your xDSD versus an all-metal cage, basically. And you can see the high-res sticker here, so it's approved by the Japanese Audiophile Society that this can play back high-resolution music according to their specifications. So that's a good certification to have for consumers to see. And yeah, so that's the overview of the xDSD's basic appearance. Now, to actually use the xDSD, it's got quite a learning curve, I must say, but once you get used to it, it's kind of cool to use. So first and foremost, to turn it on, you press and hold the volume button. So you can see the LED is turned green, and that means that it's in wired mode. So in wired mode, you can use the SPDIF input or USB input. If you turn it on and you hold the volume button, you can switch modes. So now it's in the wireless mode. So in wireless mode, you're using Bluetooth. To pair the xDSD with a Bluetooth source, you can press and hold this button, and it will allow the input button to flash between red and blue. It's hard to see on the camera, but it's red and blue. And that way you can find the xDSD with your Bluetooth device. So in my usage case, I mostly used it as a Bluetooth DAC amp because I believe the future of portable audio is through Bluetooth connection. So for my personal usage, I usually use this in the Bluetooth mode, but I did evaluate the sound quality in USB mode as well. So here you can see the button switch for the analog sound change, I guess. I won't call it DSP, even though that's the easiest way to describe it. The enhancement of your sound audio. You can have the X Bass Plus on, you can have the 3D Plus on, or you can have both on at the same time. So you can turn the Bluetooth pairing off by just turning the power off. And to turn it on to line out mode, you actually have to press the settings button while you turn your unit on for a few seconds. So now the iFi volume logo is white, so that indicates that it's in line out mode. So it'll be full volume output. To turn it off, you basically do the same thing. You need to turn it on with the settings button held, and you get your green there. And let's turn it back off again. So that's how you use the xDSD. I'll plug this in. This is connected to my computer over to the left. So I'll plug this in and show you the volume. So let's go ahead and turn this on to green mode, which is USB input. Hopefully my computer can detect this. There we go. So volume is pretty cool. You can see it with the color indications. So red here is like maximum output. And then there's yellow. You can't really tell in the camera, but there's yellow, green, cyan, magenta, blue, and off. You can also mute the entire volume by just pushing the volume button like so. So that's how you use the xDSD. For USB input, I've mostly been using it with my OnePlus 3, which I'm using to record, and I've been using this USB OTG cable. So this is a USB Type-C to USB-A connector, and the reason why iFi decided to use a male USB-A as the input is because when you have your portable device, so let's say an Android phone or an Apple iPhone, you can just use a USB OTG cable, or you can use the Lightning Lightning to USB cable and just plug it directly into the xDSD. So it's pretty easy to use. For me personally, I didn't really find the USB input convenient, because if I have this as a portable device, I would need to connect my phone here, and this cable is super stiff and not very ergonomic to use at all. So for me, I mostly use this as a Bluetooth device. So now evaluating the overall sound of the xDSD, I would say it's pretty neutral. If you're familiar with the Chord Mojo sound, it reminds me very much of the Chord Mojo. The USB and the Bluetooth circuits are both clocked at the same master clock. So iFi calls this the global master clock. So it's all timed with a femto clock inside of the xDSD, which is really neat to hear in a portable unit, let alone a portable unit that's under $500. It's insane to even think about. So there's a femto clock powering the clocks for the xDSD in both Bluetooth and USB inputs. So it's a very accurate sound for the timing of the signal that you're inputting, whether it's a 44.1 kilohertz signal and its families, or the 48 kilohertz signal and its families. So for all the sample rates, it's all very precise with the femto clocks inside of the xDSD. Now, what's also cool about the xDSD is that it's got the CyberDrive, or what they call a CyberDrive amp design, which means that it has the S-balanced output, as well as a smart gain output for your usage case. So depending on the load that you're putting onto the xDSD, it outputs these various voltages and milliwatts of power. Because this is a battery operated device, the voltage output of it is limited by the battery, which is 3.8 volts. So if you're driving high impedance headphones, maybe this won't be the best device for that. However, I did get to listen to this with the Sennheiser HD820 prototype, and it drove it pretty well. Also, if you're using sensitive in-ears, there's no background hiss at all when you're playing music. So I've been using that with my Etymotic ER4 SR, as well as the Ultimate Ears Reference Remastered, and I get no background hiss at the lowest power output. So that's really nice to have in a portable device, no background hiss. However, when I'm when I turn the device on, and I have no audio signal going through the circuit, I do hear kind of a buzzing hiss sound. So there is some noise, but when you start putting audio, even if it's complete silence, the sound goes away. So there's no problem with that. In terms of the overall power output, I've been using the xDSD with my Ultimate Ears Reference Remastered, and I tend to have the volume at the mid cyan color to green as like the maximum that I would go for volume. So it's got plenty of power for the in-ears. And then I've been using also the Focal Clear, and those have been mostly on the green level. I've rarely had to reach the yellow setting, but it's mostly been within the green region for the volume. So it's got plenty of power for those as well. And for the HD820 prototype, it was also on the green level. So according to the user manual, the green volume level, green volume level is about minus 39 to minus 22 decibels, or 73 to 56% of the total volume output that it can put out. So it's got plenty of power to drive your headphones. So really driving your headphones is no issue. I do have a friend who has a HE6, and I would not recommend using the HE6 with the xDSD at all. Even on max volume, it didn't sound that great. Also, the Mr. Speakers Ether Flow, I believe, or Ether, it didn't have enough power to drive those properly as well. So maybe the xDSD won't be great for your planar magnetic headphones that are relatively hard to drive. But for everything else, I think it's pretty good for a unit that can fit in your pocket. So talking about the sound again, like I mentioned before, if you're familiar with the Chord Mojo, it reminds me a lot of that. The Chord Mojo does have a little more of a refined sound to it, especially on the treble side, where it sounds very smooth and natural. But the xDSD can do so much more, and it's at a much lower price, so I would recommend this over the Chord Mojo in complete honesty. So overall, the xDSD sound is kind of a neutral sound. It's got a slight warmth to it, and the treble is a little bit bright for me, but other than that, it sounds very good. So the bass is a little bit warm, but it doesn't quite have the extension that I'm used to from my Geek Pulse X Infinity or other USB DACs that I've heard that are desktop size. But for a portable unit, has pretty good bass reproduction. Moving on to the mids, it's pretty much fine up until the upper mids, where it starts to get a little bit bright for me. If you're listening to this on the go, which is what my primary purpose was for using this device, the brightness does kind of get to you. So I tended to listen with the X-Bass Plus on for when I was listening on the go. And so that brightness does get a little bit fatiguing. It's enhanced when you're on the Bluetooth mode compared to USB mode. So I was using my xDSD as a Bluetooth DAC amp, and that brightness kind of bothered me when using this on the go with my Ultimate Ears Reference Remastered. But having the X-Bass Plus on kind of diminished that brightness a little bit, allowing me to use a lower volume level and thus lower the brightness. On USB mode, that brightness isn't really there, so you don't have to worry about it too much. But moving on to the treble region, it does sound a little bit grainy. So the upper mid-range / lower treble region is a little bit of a grainy sound for me. But for a portable unit, it sounds very good still. Using this as a USB DAC amp with my computer, it sounded pretty good. There's no really big fault with the Soundstage overall, coming from the treble sounding grainy. The Soundstage was very good. It's mostly kind of a round soundstage, much like the iFi Micro iDSD Black Label. So it's got kind of a round soundstage rather than wide or deep. It's more circular and three-dimensional. The imaging was very good as well. I would probably again attribute that to the femtoclocks inside of the xDSD, allowing you to have very good timing in between your samples, so you can have very nicely reproduced signals. And so for me, I usually associate DACs with a femtoclock as having very good imaging, and the xDSD is no exception for that. So it has really good imaging. Not quite the same as the Chord Mojo again. The Chord Mojo tends to have this amazing way to present images in your head. It might have to do with the FPGA architecture it has versus the IC DAC chip that this uses. This uses a Burr Brown DAC chip, multi-bit. So maybe it has to do with that technology difference that makes it easier or harder to have better imaging in the product. But for a portable DAC amp, this does fantastic imaging. So for me, using this on the go, it kind of really enhanced the way I listen to music, especially with the OnePlus 3. The OnePlus 3 sound quality from the headphone output's not that great, so having the xDSD, even in Bluetooth mode with the brightness that I talked about, sounded a lot better. So that's pretty much my thoughts about the xDSD in terms of its sound. So it's very good sound quality, and there's a lot of bang for your buck in this case. So this unit costs $399, which is insane, because if you think about it, the Chord Mojo is about that same price as well, but this xDSD does Bluetooth. So if you needed Bluetooth from the Chord Mojo, you would have to buy the Poly, and the combination of the two, that costs over $1,000 US, which is insane. So I would definitely recommend the xDSD over that combo if you need good sound quality and you need the Bluetooth connectivity and you want your volume control to be ultra precise at low volume levels. So this volume knob is actually a digital volume knob, but it controls the circuit as an analog signal. So it's a very precise way to control the volume. Each click that you hear from the volume knob is 1 decibel, but if you want to adjust the volume more, you can kind of quickly turn the knob and it will adjust it in larger increments at that time. So it's a very smart way to do the volume control. It's different than just the buttons that you have to keep pushing on the Chord Mojo, which is annoying to me, especially if you're using it as a portable DAC amp, where you need to constantly fiddle with it depending on the situation that you're in. The volume knob for the iFi xDSD is just fantastic. If you need to mute the sound, you just push it in and it's muted. So it's very easy to use. So for me, this is a very easy recommendation for anybody looking for a portable DAC amp that is both USB compatible and Bluetooth compatible. So really high remarks for the xDSD in terms of its value for your money. So those are my overall impressions. If you want any comparisons between things, feel free to leave a comment below. Otherwise, thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next video.